And today's challenge is talking about this movie without spoiling anything. Hello everyone and welcome to Rewind Reviews. In this video I'm taking a look at one of the most anticipated horror movies of the year, and that is Weapons. Released in 2025, Weapons sees all but one child from the same classroom mysteriously vanish on the same night at the exact same time, and the community is left wondering who or what is behind their disappearance. Written and directed by Zach Cregger, this original horror tale stars Julia Garner, Josh Brolin, Benedict Wong, Alden Ehrenreich, Austin Abrams and Carrie Christopher. I'll be honest, this movie is a little bit complicated to talk about without spoiling anything, but I'll try my best. I may need to mention the odd thing here and there, I'll warn you now, but I'll try and keep it vague. It's a movie that does work a lot better when you know as little about it as possible, so I would suggest if you want to go and see the movie absolutely completely blind, then maybe see it before seeing this review. So, with that out of the way, let's begin. Truth be told, I only actually found out about this movie through all the advertisements and trailers that came out this year. Those of you that know me or watch this channel know that I'm not a humongous horror movie fan, but admittedly that is something that has started to change over the past few years because I have been a bit more keen to check out a lot more older horror movies that I've never seen before, and actually going to see a lot more new ones on the cinema. But the only ones that I'll go and see in the cinema are the ones that get my attention, which Weapons absolutely did. The premise of this movie alone got me really intrigued, and I thought, you know what, I kind of want to check this out. I can't lie, the idea of seeing a rated 18 horror movie shrouded in mystery that I knew barely anything about on the big screen was not the most appealing, but my curiosity won out. And I can't lie, there was actually one other little bit of information I heard before the movie came out that actually helped swing this for me. Apparently, multiple movie studios, big ones like Warner Brothers and Universal Pictures, were all fighting over the rights for this movie, including Jordan Peele's company. And allegedly, Jordan Peele actually fired his management when they failed to acquire the rights. I don't know how true this is, but he had parted ways with his management not long after Warner Brothers acquired the rights. Coincidence? I think not. So this surely must be worth it then. Oh yes. This was fantastic. Not flawless, but it was so much fun and I had a great time with it. It spooked me, intrigued me and made me question things in a good way. It made me laugh and jump in equal measure. It was brilliant. And I think the audience that were there at my screening had a great time too. Us lot in the UK, and I think I've mentioned this before, we don't tend to react to things in the same way that people in the US do. We tend to be a bit more quieter and subdued. This is the most reactive my audience has ever been outside of a big movie based on a popular IP. I had some people during some of the creepy bits going, oh no, 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 no. There was a scene involving a door opening that just got a load of gasps. There was even a woman sitting behind me with her boyfriend, and just before the movie started, I could hear her whispering to him, oh, I'm so glad I'm sitting at the back, I don't want people seeing me jump. I've done it myself, no disrespect to her. And on top of that, this got a bigger laugh out of anything else I've seen in the cinema this year. And I'll come back to that later. But yeah, I think my audience really enjoyed it. In fact, after the movie had finished and I'd left the cinema, there was two girls actually recording each other doing the weird run that all the kids do. And as I walked past them, I just went, oh, I wonder what you've been to see. And then the pair of them went, oh my god, it was so good. Anyway, let's properly get into it. So what's this movie about? Weapons is a movie about a group of individuals within a small community in the aftermath of a mysterious event, which saw all but one child from the exact same classroom vanish on the exact same night at 2:17 AM. And through this movie, you see several different perspectives, like the school teacher who gets blamed for the disappearances, or a terrified and angry parent who's just trying to get answers. And all these stories weave together in an interconnected web that answers questions and unfolds the mystery. It has a very unique Reservoir Dogs style approach to telling this story, and it is done in a way that makes sense. It is very tricky to get this style of storytelling right, and I don't think that it's going to be for everyone, but I do think that how it's done in this movie is very good and done very well. This could so easily have been hard to follow or just become a straight up mess, but it's done in a way that, yes, makes sense and allows for any twists and reveals to happen in some surprising ways. It's also a really effective way to ramp up tension and suspense by cluing us, the audience, in on things that are happening. So when one character has something really creepy happen to them at a certain location, we're already on edge when some other character goes there later on. This has bags of tension, especially within the first half of the movie when you don't know what's going on. I've only seen this movie the once so far, but I am tempted to maybe give it another go. We'll see. But I do feel like the tension won't build up as much on subsequent rewatches, partly because you know what's going to happen, but partly because, and especially thinking back, there is a few elements and there is a few plot lines and stories that don't really add up to anything. Nothing of significant value, I should say. The biggest of which revolves around a police officer and a junkie. I genuinely don't think that needed anywhere near as much attention or detail as it did. Again, this is only thinking back on it. I do think that it could have been trimmed down a little bit, but it is one of the more entertaining sequences in this. But even with that said, I do think that the pacing for this movie is spot on. It plays out naturally, and for me, it doesn't drag. I can see some people saying that this is a bit slow, and I can understand why, but for me, it was just right. And it also helps that it jumps straight into the mystery. The mystery is built up really well with some great storytelling and creative visuals. It's explored properly with plenty of surprises. I will say there is one very big question that I did have by the time the credits rolled, and I don't think it was properly answered. It's hinted at throughout the film, but that's something that I've only picked up on after thinking about it. I think that is one thing that they could have done with answering a little bit better. But outside of those things, this was really good. Something that did surprise me. There's a little bit of a tonal shift in the second half. It's more or less when the junkie gets introduced into the story and the film kind of becomes a little bit more funnier, which I don't think anyone was expecting. There is surprisingly a lot of humour in this, mainly because I think it's there to add a bit of levity. It is quite a dark story overall, but it really did catch me off guard. From all the marketing and the trailers, I thought this movie was going to be ultra serious and dramatic and a terrifying experience. And then I saw a review on YouTube that said that this movie was quite funny. And when they said that, I just thought, wait, what? It actually got to a point where my audience was properly laughing at something, and I mean properly laughing. I haven't heard my audience laugh like that outside of things like Deadpool. Even the new Naked Gun movie didn't get this kind of response, and that was hilarious. I did say we weren't the most reactive. And yeah, I definitely found this movie quite funny, but there was a little question in the back of my mind that was thinking, this is meant to be funny, right? It's not unintentional or anything. I would say so. I think it is meant to be funny. I can definitely see this being a bit divisive. But as for me, it really surprised me in a good way. Maybe it hits a lot harder because throughout the majority of the runtime, you are on edge, so it does add a little bit of relief and levity. Because, for all intents and purposes, this is a horror film. An unconventional one, mind, but a horror film nonetheless. I have seen some reviewers say that this movie feels a bit more like a thriller than a horror movie, which I won't disagree with, but at the same time, it may feel more like a thriller at times, sure, but it has some really creepy and twisted moments that will definitely get under your skin. There's a few scenes where my audience was squirming, and there's quite a few jump scares sprinkled throughout this as well. I'll warn you now, they are definitely effective and feel quite jarring when they happen, especially considering how quiet the build-up to those moments are. You want proof? The boyfriend of the girl that was sitting behind me actually booted the chair next to me for one bit, and she was the one who was worried about jumping. If you do have any experience with horror movies, you can definitely see most of them coming, but there's a good few of them that will definitely get you. I am a little bit conflicted on how many jump scares are actually in this movie because not all of them are really needed. Thinking back on this movie, I do think that the jump scares is one aspect of this movie that I do think that maybe they could have dialed back on a little bit. That's making it sound like there's a load of jump scares in this. There's not that many, but I do feel like some of the ones that they do include in this don't feel necessary. Maybe if they just dialed those ones back and focused much more on the tension and suspense, I think that it would have worked a lot better. But as it is, it does help build up suspense and it does keep you on edge. So as I said, I'm a bit conflicted. Plus, the ones that make sense, as I said, are really effective. I'll warn you now, this movie can be quite brutal and gory as well. As I said earlier, over here in the UK, this movie is rated an 18, which is the highest rating a movie can get in the cinema. Personally, I don't think it's as extreme as I think that most people think that it is going to be, but there is a few moments that did make me wince. And there's like 2 or 3 moments in this that I definitely think that, yeah, that's probably why this was rated an 18. I am admittedly becoming a little bit more immune to this kind of stuff, so it didn't really bother me too much. But for those few moments, yeah, I think the 18 certificate was probably for the best. It can be nasty at times, so I'll warn you now, I don't think this is going to be for the squeamish. I think what helps with that is the fact that a lot of this movie is quite practical and it's done with a lot of real effects. And that stuff is excellent. There is some special effects here and there, but it's quite subtle and used sparingly to great effect. And I can't deny there's some really good stuff in this. And that also goes for the performances. There is some top talent in this, and everyone in this movie is perfectly cast and delivers some fantastic and grounded performances. As I said, this movie is broken up into several different perspectives, so there isn't really a main character as such. It's much more of an ensemble piece. Julia Garner's character has been showcased the most in the marketing, and she is absolutely on top form. She's had a pretty good year this year, and she's definitely someone to watch out for. She is fantastic. Her performance in this is absolutely spectacular, and I really like how they approach her character and how the disappearance affects her. Josh Brolin plays a fairly prominent part in this too, as one of the parents whose kid has gone missing. Again, he is perfectly cast, and I love what they do with him, and how his character is written. And originally, Pedro Pascal was set to play this role. Yeah, I couldn't really see anyone else apart from Josh doing this. Same with Alden Ehrenreich as a police officer who gets caught up in it all. I thought his performance was brilliant, but the character doesn't really add a huge deal to the story. Same with Austin Abrams as this junkie character who doesn't have a huge role to play, but he does have some importance and he's a main source of levity as well. As I said, when it comes to their stories, I think that they could have done with a bit of a trim to just the important stuff, but they are enjoyable and do add some humour. Benedict Wong, as always, is also brilliant in this. Again, it's not a huge role in the overall story, but he does have some standout moments that will definitely stay with you for a bit. And I love how much Benedict throws himself into what's required of him. And I can't not mention Carrie Christopher, who is amazing. His character, what they do with him, how he fits into the story as the sole kid who didn't vanish is really good. And Carrie's performance is brilliant. He's got a bright future ahead of him. There is one other big element that I would like to talk about this movie, but I can't really get into it too much. Without spoiling it, there's this antagonistic element to this movie that, in my opinion, is one of the best of the year. It contrasts quite a bit with a lot of the darker elements in this movie, and because of that, it's highly memorable and so easily hateable. I was so glad that this element of the movie hadn't been spoiled in any of the marketing. In fact, it hadn't been shown or hinted at whatsoever. It was such a surprise with some excellent qualities, and it's one aspect that writer and director Zach Cregger has said that he's interested in exploring further in a potential sequel or prequel, which I'd be down for. It's a really cool and creepy aspect to this movie, and I would love to see more of it. And finally, the music from Reese and Hayes Holiday and Zach Cregger himself. I wouldn't say that this soundtrack was anything particularly special, but it is really atmospheric and it does add to a lot of the tension and suspense. Plus, I like how it changes depending on which character is getting followed. And I think the song choices are pretty good too. This might have the best use of a George Harrison song since Guardians Volume 2. It's a really good and suitable soundtrack overall. I do think that it sounded decent. Overall, while I can't say that this is perfect, with a few plot holes, some elements that could have been trimmed, and a couple divisive decisions, I thought this was brilliant. The performances, the characters, the setting, visual sound design, editing choices, visual effects, plot, pacing, and music are all great. It's creepy, it's tense and funny, and it's a great experience all around. Just don't go into this expecting a full-on gore-filled horror movie. That's not exactly what this is. It does have its squeamish and spooky moments, don't get me wrong, and it can be a bit brutal at times. But that aside, I think this is definitely one to watch, and I think that you'll have a great time. Go and see it. As I said, it really surprised me in a good way. I'm glad I saw this in a packed cinema, and I really enjoyed it. So with all that being said, my rating for Weapons is an 8 out of 10. Right, I think that is pretty much everything I want to say for this video, so if you have watched this video, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoy this content, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification button. If you have seen Weapons, let me know down in the comments what you think about it. Plus, if you have any suggestions for any future Rewind reviews you would like to see me do in the future, let me know down below. But until next time, thank you very much for watching, and I shall see you in the next video. See you guys.